Welcome everyone. This is going to be an important XRP update. In this video, I'm going to talk about the most recent XRP price action with XRP falling below $1 for the first time in 2 years. It really seems that my predictions were accurate. Most importantly, I'm going to answer one fundamental question. Do I still believe XRP is headed below $1 again? In other words, do I still believe XRP can drop as low as 70 cents? Will the Clarity Act impact the price of digital assets? How's the Clarity Act going to affect XRP? Well, make sure you watch this video until the end. Just yesterday, XRP dropped below $1 for the first time in 2 years. That was a great buying opportunity in my opinion. But let me tell you what really matters. It's not only about a psychological level on the charts. Let me just have a seat here. It's gonna be easier. But it's also about XRP losing a critical support level on the chart, which so far XRP has failed to recover. And I'm not talking about $1. $1 is just the psychological level on the chart, but what is really holding together the whole structure? I'm talking about $1.05, and this support level has been lost in the last couple of days. So it remains a real possibility that once again we're going to see XRP revisiting lower levels on the chart. I'm talking about 70 cents, perhaps 72 cents. That is indeed the next critical support level on the chart. But let me tell you something that might sound counterintuitive. Unless you are a trader, and I am aware that most of the people watching this video are just holders, and I 100% believe you should be a holder, not a trader. In this case, I will not be waiting for a correction. I will not be waiting for XRP to revisit 70 cents to be taking advantage of this opportunity. Although I do have massive buy orders for XRP in case it drops below $1 once again, and I did share those trades on my Substack, I do believe that if you are aiming for the long term, it doesn't really matter if you're going to buy XRP at 70 cents, 80 cents, or $1. In fact, it doesn't even matter if you bought XRP at $2 or $3. So don't be discouraged if you bought XRP above $2 and $3. I know a lot of people did that. I don't think that's a mistake, but you can just DCA. Split your entries if you feel bad about buying XRP above $2, because I know people bought XRP above $2, simply DCA and split your entries. But what really matters is the long term, and when you think long term, I'm not talking about 10 years from now, I'm talking about maybe 24 months from now. That's what I consider to be long term in crypto, especially right now with the convergence between artificial intelligence and digital assets. There's no doubt that artificial intelligence, AI agents are speeding up the demand for neutral bridge assets, specifically like XRP and XLM. So when I think about XRP's future potential, and this is not a financial advice, but we're talking XRP trading above $100 or even $1,000, it doesn't really matter if you bought XRP at $1.70. If you understand XRP's potential in the future, you should not be worried about price volatility. As a matter of fact, you should see volatility as a great opportunity, especially if you are trying to climb on the XRP ladder. Maybe you want to become a top 10% holder, a top 5% holder. In this case, I think this is a great opportunity. And if we account for inflation, just think about fiat currencies losing its purchasing power. In this case, I want to reduce my exposure to fiat currencies and I want to increase my exposure to digital assets. And this is precisely why I have massive buy orders for XRP in place. I did share those buy orders on my Substack. You're going to find that on my exclusive articles. You will find the link in the description of this video. And unlike a lot of crypto YouTubers, I don't want to create hype around the Clarity Act. I could be making 10 videos a day about the Clarity Act. That's not the case because I don't like to make videos about something that I fundamentally don't believe in. And in this case, I really don't believe the Clarity Act is going to have any significant impact on XRP's price. In fact, we even might see XRP price dumping in face of the Clarity Act, which is quite crazy, I know, but XRP usually does that, and that's because of markets manipulation. That's because of market makers. They capitalize on news, bad and good news. So this is one of the greatest lessons I learned in crypto. When everyone's expecting the same outcome, let's say with everyone expecting the SEC lawsuit to be over and XRP to instantly climb above $10 or $100, and then XRP does the exact opposite. How many times people were getting liquidated because they were betting on XRP price to rise because of the SEC lawsuit, or even worse in this case, because they expect the Clarity Act to save crypto and XRP to climb above $10 or even $100 just because of regulation. And no, I'm not saying that regulation is not an important piece of the puzzle, but you can be sure that insiders already know the final outcome of the Clarity Act in 2026, and they have already been positioning themselves in the last 24 months. I'm not saying it's impossible that you're going to have perhaps a 10-20% pump on XRP price just because of the Clarity Act. It's just that I think the price action is going to move on the opposite direction afterwards. So let's say if XRP pumps 30%, it can even dump 40% a couple of minutes later. I am in crypto for a long time and I know exactly the modus operandi of the ones in charge. And they keep using retail as exit liquidity. They keep using leverage positions to liquidate most of retail investors. So in this case, my advice is stay away from leverage. And remember, focus on the long term. And remember this, XRP does not need the Clarity Act. Fundamentally because XRP doesn't depend on America. I know that sounds difficult for you to comprehend, especially if you are based in the United States and all you see all over the news is about the Clarity Act. But honestly, XRP is an international monetary instrument. Or do you think Russia or other BRICS nations are waiting for the US permission to use XRP as a neutral bridge asset? In fact, they are already integrating XRP into their financial system. Just see the Bank of Russia successfully testing on top of the XRP ledger. And even if we're going to see from the narrative perspective, XRP is still the only digital asset with regulatory clarity in the United States. The purge hasn't even fully begun for most digital assets in America. And XRP is already sitting ahead of the curve. The XRP ledger is a permissionless blockchain, is a neutral bridge asset that can't be controlled by any sovereign nation. So it's not going to be a piece of regulation that's going to dictate XRP adoption. Because although Ripple is an American company that owns a substantial portion of the XRP supply, ownership of tokens doesn't mean control over the network. Any changes on the XRP network must be approved by 80% of the decentralized validators. Ripple has no control over the validators. Ripple does not control the network. And the Clarity Act does not ensure or prevent XRP mass adoption. In fact, XRP is an international instrument, the only asset capable of becoming a global reserve currency. Honestly, I would not feel good making 10 videos a day about the Clarity Act, clickbaiting you on the Clarity Act impact on digital assets. So yeah, I took this 6-day break from work. I think that has helped me to get some mental clarity. No pun intended. I think it's very important to have a break sometimes. I like to stay honest, and in my honest opinion, yes, okay, the Clarity Act is an important piece of the puzzle, but it's not going to be the Clarity Act that's going to dictate XRP adoption. I don't think I would be even investing on XRP if I knew that a piece of regulation could prevent XRP from becoming a global monetary instrument. This is the whole point of a decentralized network, not being tied to any specific jurisdiction. And by believing the Clarity Act would be a game changer for XRP adoption, you would go against its own nature. Because although Ripple is an American company, Ripple bears no control over the network. Ownership of tokens doesn't grant control over the network, and this is the biggest advantage of the XRP ledger. There is no competition in terms of its technical capabilities, liquidity rails, on-demand liquidity. XRP was built for the next big crisis, and I am talking about the liquidity crisis. If you understand what I mean, there are two assets primarily designed for a liquidity crisis, XRP and XLM, and those are the assets that are trusted by every single central bank in the world. Those are the assets that the Central Bank of Russia has been testing on. The CBDC of Ukraine, for example, is built on top of Stellar Network. In one hand, you have Ukraine building on top of Stellar. In the other hand, you have the Central Bank of Russia successfully testing on top of the XRP ledger. So we are talking about assets primarily designed to become global monetary instruments capable of connecting and bridging fiat currencies at scale. And if you understand XRP's real nature, you are not concerned about price volatility. And as a matter of fact, this could be your very last chance to buy XRP below $1. Nice place to end my video. So I want to know who are the real ones that watch the videos until the end. Thank you, everyone. I'm gonna see you in the next video.